how the Chinese zodiac was put in order. Many ages ago, the heavens were in turmoil. The animals and their constellations of stars ran this way and that way, wandering as they pleased, foraging for comets and other celestial treats. Meanwhile, down on Earth, humans were trying to develop navigation and clocks and schedules so they could have meetings and parties and events like this one today. The Queen Mother of the West, who was very fond of humans, realized that the night sky could become a tool her dear humans could use to mark the passage of time and guide their ships so they could spread out from China and populate the earth. All that was needed was to arrange the animal constellations in a parade across the heavens and convince them to stay in their places while the earth revolved beneath them. Not only could humans use the position of the constellations in the heavens to guide themselves, they could use the sequence to mark large passages of time, just as they use the phases of the moon to mark smaller ones. So she told the Jade Emperor to summon all the animals with their constellations and have a meeting to decide how to order time. Since he loved her very much, he did as she suggested. When the animals were gathered before the celestial throne, he told them the Queen's wishes, that the heavens be organized, and invited their suggestions. The cat spoke first. "I think we should have a race. Many of these animals are inferior and shouldn't even be here. But the one that comes in first should be first in the heavenly parade of animals." Now, the other animals didn't like the cat. Although it started life as a sweet, soft, furry thing and made humans love it, its main pleasure in life was to torture and kill small creatures. However, the Jade Emperor did not know this. Or maybe he did know this and forgave the cat because its fur was so soft. So he agreed to hold a race. At this point, the elephant, the giraffe, the cricket, and the crab walked out in protest. The scorpion, the fish, and the lion also left. The Jade Emperor, trying to be bipartisan and maintain harmony, suggested an alternative.
"We will have a race, and the winners will be the names given to each cycle of the seasons. But we could have many winners. We could have 8 winners, because 8 is the luckiest number."
"We could have 10 winners because that is the number of the Queen Mother's fingers," the little snake suggested. Although the snake was very young, it knew about numbers. Chinese animals are very good at math.
"Okay, 10 it shall be,"
said the Jade Emperor. "More, more," cried other animals, because many of them wanted to be famous and were afraid they were not as fast as other animals. The aardvark, the kiwi, the dodo, the echidna, the dugong, and the duck-billed platypus all wanted recognition. Some of them would achieve fame in the future, as representatives of New Zealand, as answers in crossword puzzles, or just because they were really weird, but they did not know this at the time. In order to please as many animals as possible, without matters getting out of hand, the Jade Emperor agreed to allow 2 additional animals to have a cycle of seasons named after them. 12 in all. 12 would be the perfect number. And so the race was to begin the next morning. And that was the cat's undoing. For the other animals disliked the cat so much that they told it the race had been postponed until evening. So the cat slept late that day and never showed up for the race at all. As a result of being tricked, the cat is still angry and to this day continues to hunt other animals to make them suffer. The rat, who was not without moral flaws, knew that its legs were too small to compete effectively. So the night before the race, it chose the friendliest looking big animal, the ox, and treated it to a jug of wine. The rat sang songs to the ox and convinced it they were great friends. The next morning, the rat offered to sing to the ox to give it luck and encouragement. The ox was very happy with the offer, but when the rat began to sing, the ox could not hear the song. The rat, in fact, was only pretending to sing.
I'm too far away here on the ground. I could sit between your horns and sing in your ear throughout the entire race, and then certainly you must do well,
the rat suggested, and the ox agreed, thinking it was very lucky to have such a good friend. The rat sang in her beautiful tiny voice, and the ox began the race, running faster than oxen usually can, thinking that life was wonderful and having a good friend was the best thing in the world. Surprisingly, the ox was the first one to approach the finish line. And then just before it crossed the line, the rat leaped forward and came in first. It might not be in the spirit of fair play, but first is first, and the rat claimed the honor of leading the parade of animals in the cycle of seasons, while the ox was in second place. At first, the ox felt taken advantage of, but the rat, knowing that connections are important to maintain throughout life, reminded the ox that it ran faster because of the rat's singing, and together they were both winners. The ox conceded this was true and continues to be agreeable, placid, and accepting to this very day. It will work for humans, give them milk, and not mind when life does not always turn out for the very best. The rat's tricky behavior has not been forgotten, and even today, humans, who are fond of most small creatures, do not like rats. Music continued to be an important part of rat history, but ironically, one time it had a very bad result in the European town of Hamelin, when all the rats in the city followed the music of a Pied Piper.
What we have told you so far is known to the sages, but there is more to the story, and your intrepid Lao Wai, Luo Bin, and Zhen Mei have uncovered the hidden history that has been lost for centuries. Many have wondered, but what of the other animals? Should we not expect the tiger to come in first? Why did this not happen? This was the question that inspired our research, and this is what we discovered. We learned that, early in the race, when the tiger was well ahead of the other animals, she caught sight of the rabbit, which, as you know, is pretty fast and quite nimble. The tiger, who is always hungry, is easily distracted by the sight of food. The rabbit ran through a narrow opening in some bramble bushes. The tiger tried to follow and got stuck. When the tiger finally untangled itself and licked the scratches caused by the thorns, it could not find the rabbit. Suddenly it remembered the race, how important it was to win. But by this time, the rat and the ox had already crossed the finish line, so the tiger came in third. Where was the rabbit? Well, it was very clever, and seeing the tiger so focused on the race, it stayed close behind, drafting to make up for its shorter legs. Immediately after the tiger crossed the finish line, the rabbit ran across too, coming in fourth, and quickly hid inside another bramble bush so the tiger, distracted by the cheers of the crowd, would not catch it. And then there was the dragon. You might be wondering, why didn't the dragon who could fly, why didn't the dragon win the race? Western stories about dragons emphasize its ability to fly like the wind, to breathe fire, and to destroy peasant villages with the mighty beat of its wings. But the truth is, dragons care more about their families than anything else. This dragon had a child, a little dragon that today we call a snake. When the race began, the dragon flew with the snake on its back, but the snake said, "Mommy,
I'm not a baby and I want to race on my own."
The dragon landed and put the snake down. but would never think of leaving it behind.
Stay near Mommy and don't wander.
The dragon set off walking at a reasonable pace, often looking back to make sure the snake was not wandering off the race course, because snakes tend to slither from side to side. Because they walked and slithered part of the course, the dragon and the snake came in 5th and 6th. To this day, the snake still moves from side to side, seeming to wander off its intended route, but thanks to the watchful dragon, usually getting to its destination. And then there were the horse and the goat, both pretty fast runners. What were they doing all this time? All we can say is that the horse and the goat were very good friends, and we don't know what they were doing off by themselves, nuzzling each other's necks and being very good friends. But it took them a while to finish, and so despite their speedy legs, they did not finish first. They stood at the finish line for a while, each urging the other to go first. "You first, little goat." "No, no, I will follow you, little horse." But when the goat saw the monkey and the rooster coming up behind them, she gave the horse a push with her head and butted it across the finish line. So the horse and the goat came in 7th and 8th. And to this day, they like to live in fields near each other, and the goat still likes to push at things with its head.
Next came the rooster and the monkey. What can we tell you about them? They're both very scatterbrained and do not listen to directions. When they heard the rat singing to the ox, they thought the contest was not about speed, but about sound, so they both tried to make their voices as loud as possible. The rooster flapped its wings as it called. The monkey jumped up and down and called. The monkey might have won a hollering contest, except this contest was about speed and not about loudness. So the two of them came across the finish line, howling and crowing, so proud of themselves, although they were only 9th and 10th. And to this day, many think the howler monkey is the world's loudest animal, and many more are awakened every morning by the rooster calling. And finally, the last two animals to have a cycle of seasons named after them were the dog and the pig. All we can say is back then, these two animals, although born with remarkable brains, were not raised by Chinese parents, and as a result, they had no sense of competition, nor a drive to be first in their class. They finished at their own pace, happy to have finished the race at all. And maybe this was not so bad, since the cycle of 12 is repeated over and over, and these days, people barely remember which animal was first and which one was last. So the dog and the pig joined the cycle with the others and lived happily ever after, doing their own thing. Now the zodiac was organized and stable. The Queen Mother of the West descended to Earth to teach the scientists and explorers how to use the stars of the zodiac to mark time and seasons and navigate the ocean safely. She cautioned them sternly. "Remember, the animals of the zodiac are there for your guidance in time and space only. Woe unto those foolish mortals who attempt to read or guide their fates according to the constellations. And cursed be the false prophets who call themselves astrologers, for they shall be reincarnated as Zhang Lang." The